That's why a number of us have been working hard on legislation that would get government out of the way in another important respect. As the tobacco industry has changed, some farmers in states like Kentucky have been searching for a new crop that can support their families and grow our agricultural economy. And many believe they've found such a product, industrial hemp, but the federal government has stood in the way. Mr. President, it's time to change that. That's why some colleagues and I are introducing legislation that will modernize federal law in this area and empower American farmers to explore this promising new market. I want to thank my fellow Kentucky Congressman, Jamie Comer, my good friend and colleague from Oregon, Senator Wyden, for their leadership on this issue, as well as Senator Merkley for his support. During the recent state work period, I stood with Kentucky's Agriculture Commissioner, Ryan Quarles, to announce my intention to introduce new legislation on this subject. So today, we're introducing the Hemp Farming Act of 2018. It will build on the success of recent pilot programs and take a big step toward growth and more innovation. As I travel across Kentucky, I've spoken with farmers, manufacturers, and small business owners. Time and again, they shared with me their enthusiasm for hemp's potential to re-energize agricultural communities and provide a new spark to the U.S. economy. This bill will help make that potential a reality. But first, let's remember how we got to this point. In 2014, I secured language in the Farm Bill that established hemp pilot programs in states that allow hemp research. The results have been extraordinary. In Kentucky, hemp is proving useful across a wide variety of innovative products. Its fibers are being added to concrete and home insulation. Its extracts are being researched for potential health benefits, and some breweries in Kentucky have even crafted hemp-infused beer. Last year alone, the hemp industry added 81 new jobs in Kentucky and yielded more than $16 million for Kentucky farmers. And that, Mr. President, is just under Kentucky's research pilot program. And of course, that's just one state. Already, in fact, around $600 million in hemp products are sold each year here in the U.S., but due to current laws, much of this hemp has to be imported. That cuts out our American farmers. It's time for that to change. The legislation we're introducing today will solve this problem and get the federal government out of the way of this promising market. The Hemp Farming Act of 2018 will do the following. First and foremost, our bill will finally legalize hemp and remove it from the list of controlled substances. By recognizing the difference in statute between hemp and its illicit cousin, we can remove much of the confusion facing farmers, producers, and state agencies. Second, the legislation will allow states to become the primary regulators of hemp if they can develop a plan to properly monitor its production. Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner Quarles is a strong supporter of hemp and its potential. And under his guidance, the industry is already growing and maturing in Kentucky through the pilot program. He and state leaders like him around the country are well positioned to develop their own policies and take the industry to the next level. If states are unable or choose not to create their own regulatory plan, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will provide the necessary oversight. Third, this bill will also allow researchers to apply for competitive federal grants from USDA so we can continue to see more innovations with respect to this extraordinarily versatile crop. And finally, our legislation will also explicitly make hemp eligible to apply for crop insurance. That will enable farmers to build out a steady business model and put it on a level playing field with other crops. So I look forward to working continue to work with colleagues here in Congress and hemp advocates in Kentucky and throughout the nation on this legislation. Again, I want to particularly thank Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley for working with me on this bipartisan bill. I also want to thank again Congressman Comer, a longtime advocate for hemp, who, by the way, was a former agriculture commissioner in Kentucky, for taking the lead in introducing companion legislation over in the House. So I'll be proud to continue to work with him on this issue. Today is a promising step. I'm hopeful that together we can get this bill across the finish line and on to the President's desk.
Senator from Oregon.
President, the Majority Leader said that this was a promising day, and I would just say I think it is more than that. It is really a milestone to have the Majority Leader of the Senate working with a bipartisan group of us to lift a restriction that is anti-farmer, certainly anti-consumer, and anti-common sense. I mean, this industrial hemp restriction really, in my view, is working a needless hardship from sea to shining sea. And I'm going to take just a minute to build on some of the Majority Leader's remarks. Some colleagues may have heard me say that, for me, this issue goes back several years. And my wife was pregnant, and she and I headed from our house in southeast Portland, and we went off to the nearby Costco store. And we're walking through the aisles, and we come across this huge bag of hemp hearts. And it says, great fiber, terrific source of protein, a variety of different attributes were spelled out on this package. Good for your heart and good for your blood pressure. And I looked at the package, and the package clearly indicated it had been grown outside the United States. So I said to my wife, who is a businesswoman and savvy about such matters, is what would be wrong with saying, if you can buy it in a major supermarket in America, our farmers ought to be able to grow it in America. And she said, well, dear, that just sounds way too logical for what goes on in your world. But I think what the leader has said, and I just want to back up this with a little more detail, is the current policy is somehow based on the idea that hemp is a dangerous drug. I mean, if you look at the way some people have attacked this idea in the past, that was always the heart of it. Hemp was a dangerous drug. Hemp does not produce the high associated with marijuana. The only thing you're going to accomplish by smoking hemp is wasting your breath, wasting your time, and wasting lighter fluid. That is pretty much what you will accomplish. So this misguided policy of treating hemp like it is some kind of perilous, imminent threat to the American people is, I think, a mistake, and it means that the hemp products that are lining up on shelves all across America simply aren't going to be fully American-made. So you and Senator Paul have heard that from farmers in Kentucky. Senator Merkley and I have heard that from farmers in Oregon. And that is why it is so important that we move to a system that really is built on common sense, something that will be good for farmers, something that will be good for consumers, certainly offer additional consumer choice, and to, if I might, build on the now sort of memorialized words of Nancy Wyden, because when she said, hey, if you can buy it in a market in Oregon, the farmers ought to be able to grow it. I think that's a pretty good watchword for this bipartisan bill we're undertaking. I look forward to working closely with you, Mr. Leader. We're obviously going to be working with Chairman Roberts and Senator Stabenow, the ranking Democratic leader. This is long overdue. As you noted, we've got bipartisan supporters, and we are going to pull out all the stops to get this legislation passed. And I think I mentioned to the majority leader that those who've been involved in this effort, and it's been a really impressive coalition of farmers and health advocates and others, they're watching the Senate this morning because they're saying the Senate has finally come to understand what is relevant for this century. The policies that have been so flawed in the past are sort of outdated relics to yesteryear. And I'm pleased that Senator Merkley and I can join you and Senator Paul. We'll have colleagues on both sides involved in this legislation. It is long overdue. I want to thank the leader, and I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. President, if I may, I just want to thank my friend from Oregon. I think this is a great project we can work on together. During the recent break, I met with a lot of farmers in Kentucky, and I thought it was particularly noteworthy since farmers demographically tend to be older in most of our states. There were a lot of young, enthusiastic farmers, including research people from the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, with genuine enthusiasm about what this could mean to help reinvigorate a rural economy in Kentucky that's not what it used to be when we had tobacco as our #1 cash crop, and that's faded, and it should have, given the health implications of it. So this is an opportunity for us to do something together, to do something important for rural America, and I look forward to working with my friend and colleague to achieve success.